Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nicola. Please subscribe to this channel, leave a like and a comment on this video. I'll be doing a story time entitled My After Delivery Journey. Alright, so my baby was born at 10:18 a.m. in the morning, and when I wake up in the theater, I was expecting to see her, but I did not see her. However, due to the drugs that I got to put me to sleep so they could do the C-section, I could not keep up for long, so I keep falling asleep and waking up. But when I went to the ward that afternoon, nobody said anything to me, and I still did not see my baby. So I spoke with the nurse, and the nurse said the baby is admitted to the ICU. At that time, I was very shocked because I was expecting a very healthy baby. But, things do happen. One thing we cannot determine in pregnancy is how our babies will be born or what will happen to them after delivery. No matter how good we eat and how we take good care of ourselves, things will happen and it's life. It goes on. Alright, so I kept waiting for someone to update me and my baby's situation, but nobody was coming to me. So I saw a doctor on the ward, and I said I need to know what is happening with my baby because I haven't seen her since I wake up, and I just need to know what is happening. So the doctor said that the pediatrician will be coming to see me and to talk to me about the baby. So I said okay. I waited and waited and waited, still no baby. But when it reaches 8 p.m. in the night, I saw two doctors come in. So I realized that they were the pediatricians. So they came to me and they said that my baby was admitted in ICU, and they told me the reason. So the first thing she said is that when they gave the baby tea, she vomited up everything, which means that there's an intestinal blockage. And this one is very shocking, but when I heard it, I was wondering if that's really my baby they were talking about. And the doctor said that the baby was breathing too slow, so they gave her oxygen, and afterwards she started breathing too fast. So in my mind I was saying to myself that this is really a tough one because the oxygen should normalize her breathing. So when I thought that was it, the end of the story that the doctor was telling me, then she continued and she said the baby's heartbeat doesn't sound normal, which means there's a hole in the heart. When she said that, I just felt as if everything is going bad for me. But she said to me, do you want to hear more? So I said yes. She said that they're not seeing any hole in the baby bottom, and they're seeing some features that doesn't look normal. So I before I said anything else, she said, I know you're wondering if the baby is going to make it, but she's not. So when she said that, I said, it's okay. I have faith in God. And she was like, okay then, your faith in God will determine how you sleep tonight. And I said, I want to see the baby. She said that she cannot move the baby because the baby is on oxygen and they don't want to bother the baby. So I said, I need to see my baby. And she stood there looking at me. So I said, okay, if you don't take my baby to me, then I will get up out of this bed and I will walk to the ward where she is to see her. So she got scared and she said, okay, you cannot move because remember you just did a major surgery. So if you walk and anything happen to you, maybe there won't be anyone nearby to help you. So afterwards she went and she got the baby and she took the baby to me. When I looked at the baby was looking pale, even though she was on oxygen. She was looking very, very pale, you know, as if things are hopeless. So I rubbed her head and I said, baby, mommy is praying for you and everyone is praying for you. You'll be okay. So I took 2 pictures of her and the doctor walked away because you know that it's not allowed. Picture taking is not allowed on the ward. So she said that the baby will be transferred to Cornwall Regional Hospital the following morning because they cannot take care of her there due to the nature of the situation. So anyway, she said that someone should accompany the baby. So I said, okay, I'm gonna let my mother go on the ambulance with her. I was very worried at the time because the fact that I did C-section, I know I wouldn't be able to get discharged from the hospital the following day so I can be with my baby. I went to bed that night in spite of everything that was said about the baby, and I slept like a baby. When you know how to trust in God and depend on Him, doesn't matter what storm come your way, once you're strong in Christ, then He will take you through. There's a verse in Matthew that says, and lo, I will be with you always, even unto the end of the world. And I always keep that verse in my heart every day, just to encourage me and to give me strength, because you know our strength alone won't do, but once we trust in God, He will take us through no matter what the circumstances are. So when I got up in the morning, I asked the doctor if he could take the baby to see me before the baby leave for Cornwall Regional Hospital, and he said yes. He didn't take the baby to see me, and I was very upset because I cannot move because I wasn't allowed to walk yet due to the C-section. So the baby went away to Cornwall on the ambulance and I did not get to see the baby. And I called the hospital and they said they cannot give me any information on the phone, although I am the mother. So I broke down in tears and I really started to cry because you know, when you carry a child in your womb, you are connected to that child, and that bond that you develop with the baby, there is no word to explain it, but that's a love that nobody can understand. And you know, it was very hard because you carry a child and you're expecting to take your child home to love and nurture your child, and then it seems as if everything bad is just happening to the child. So I was crying, and while I was crying, a lady was visiting her sister near to my bedside, and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "My baby went to Cornwall and I cannot get to see her because I am still in the hospital due to the fact that I did C-section." And the lady hugged me and she said, "Don't cry, everything will be okay. Just trust in God and pray, because if you cry, maybe your pressure will go up and then something bad happened to you and you don't get to see the baby. So you have to be strong for the baby." So I was discharged the Saturday because I had baby the Wednesday. The baby was transferred to Cornwall Regional the Thursday, and I got discharged the Saturday. You know that when a person does C-section, they shouldn't do any hectic driving up and down and all. But I said to myself that I am going to look for my baby. So I called my taxi and he came to pick me up and I went straight to Cornwall. So when I went to Cornwall and I spoke with the doctor, she asked me if I know the baby. So I said yes. When I stood outside the ward and I looked in, I saw this bright, beautiful baby girl laying down in a colorful top. And when I looked at her, I felt that strong connection and I knew it was her. And I went in and I rubbed her down and I said, "Baby, you're a fighter, keep on fighting. Everything will be okay." And I held her hand and she squeezed my finger. At that time, I said to myself that, wow, this is amazing, but it's strange though, because at the time, she was just like 3 days old. And I said, whoa, I wasn't expecting her to squeeze my finger, but she squeezed my finger when I told her to be strong and keep fighting. So at the time, I felt really, really encouraged because I said, this baby is not a normal baby. And I spoke with the doctor and they explained everything to me. They said that they would have to do a surgery to fix the intestinal blockage. When I heard about surgery, I got scared because I said, imagine my newborn is going to do surgery. So anyway, without the surgery, she would not be able to eat anything because, you know, things has to pass through the intestine, right? So I said to the doctor that, isn't she young to do a surgery? And to my surprise, the doctor said to me that if she is to die, she's going to die. And if the surgery is to save her, it will save her. I wanted to argue with her, but I couldn't because I wasn't feeling well in my body and I could hardly breathe due to the C-section and all. So I just stood there and I looked at her. When I went to Cornwall the following day, I saw the baby head wrapped with a white band around it. So I started crying because I said to myself, but it seems as if she's getting worse. When I looked, there was an IV right here, the shape here to put an IV in her head. And the doctor, the pediatrician was walking the ward, so he looked at me with compassion and he said, he asked if I am the mother of the baby. So I said yes. And he was saying to me that they would have to take her to the Bustamante Children's Hospital to do an echocardiogram on the heart to see how the heart is working. So I said, all right. But that day when I saw the baby, I didn't want to go back to see her because I said, I cannot bear to see her in that state. Not that I was going to abandon her, because no matter how she was looking, I would still love and cherish her. So I just got really weak when I saw her because, you know, you carry your child and you're expecting your child to be born perfectly healthy, and then when the child is born, it's a whole lot of problem and pain and all. So I came home and I said to myself that I'm not going up there. I'm gonna call every day to see how she's doing. And whenever the nurses said to me that she's getting better, that's the time I'll go back to Cornwall and see her. But I cannot bear to see her in that state. And I started crying. I cried. I wept before God. I said, God, you see that this is my only baby and I love her with all my heart, but I cannot bear to see her like this. So please give me the strength to visit her because I cannot do it alone. And I cried and I prayed. I said, God, I'm not accepting anything else other than a miracle from a baby girl. And I prayed. I stayed home. I didn't went to see her the following day, but while I was home, I started worrying about the baby and I could have been in a peace. I was just feeling tormented and upset. And I said to myself that something is wrong because I couldn't be feeling this way for nothing at all. So I said, all right, the next morning I'll have to wake up very early and go to Cornwall. When I went to Cornwall, they said that they want to do the baby surgery the following day. And I said to myself that this is the reason why I was feeling so miserable and upset at home. I wasn't in any peace. So they said it was about 9 surgeons that was sitting before me at the table. And I was sitting in front of them and they said the baby has improved. However, the surgery will have to be done. And they said she has a 99.9% chance of dying in surgery because of her heart condition. And not only that, but the drugs they use to put her to sleep is too strong for her. When they said that, I felt as if my heart... When they told me that the baby has a 99.9% chance of dying in surgery than any other child because of her heart condition. And not only that, but the drugs that they use to put her to sleep is too strong for her, so that can also kill her. I felt as if my heart stopped beating and I stopped breathing. And I started screaming, I started crying, and I was really heartbroken. I was upset. I felt as if my world has ended. And it was then a voice said to me that, where is your faith in God? So I started praying in my heart and I said, God, I need you to start working some miracle in the ICU, and I want you to start with my baby first. And after I prayed, I started feeling just a little better, but the only choice I had at the time was to trust in God and leave it all in God's hands. There was no two-way about it. There was just one way, and at that time I knew I just had to trust in God wholeheartedly. And when the doctor gave me the paper to sign and I looked at it, I started setting my face away, because when I looked at it, after they explained all the procedures of the surgery on it to me, then I saw death at the end. So that turned me off and I didn't want to sign it, because I'm saying to myself that these people are going to perform a surgery, yet they're expecting her to die. But I know in myself that surgery is life and death, so anything can happen. So they have to let me be aware and they have to put it on the paper. And they said if they cut her one time and, for example, another problem occurred, they'll have to cut her again and she may develop hernia from the surgery. So if that happened, they'll have to cut her again. They mentioned cut about 4 to 5 different times. And I said to myself that whose baby are they going to cut so many times? I said, God, I need you to fix this just by one surgery, because I don't want my baby to go back to another surgery. And the baby that they said has a 99.9% chance of dying in surgery. She's here alive and well, doing well. She still has a heart condition and other stuff, but God is good. And no matter what you're going through tonight, I just want to tell you to believe in God, pray to God, because God's words are final. No matter what men say, God will always have the final say. When she came out of surgery, she was crying. I waited patiently for 8 hours to see her because the surgery took very long. And when I look at her, she was so white. She was so white, and she was very pale because she was in AC for a long period of time, so she was very cold, so she started looking white and all. The baby is truly a miracle. I prayed, my church family prayed, my pastor prayed, we prayed for a miracle, because after they told me that it's 99.9% chance of dying in surgery, I called my pastor and I told her everything that was happening, and she said, all right, we'll pray, and the church will pray, because this is going to take a miracle. And indeed, the miracle has happened. And I just want to tell someone tonight that it's not over until God says it over. You shall not die in your problems. You shall not die because of your circumstances, because we serve a God who specializes in things that are impossible and things that seems impossible. So whatever you're going through, you may feel as if it's the end of the road for you and there's no coming back for you. But I want to encourage you that your setbacks are necessary for your comeback. So be strong and have faith in God. When everything seems lost and it seems as if there is no way out, just fix your heart and Jesus, and He will do the rest. Thank you for watching. I'll do a part 2 of this video next time, because I'll have to tell you about the after surgery effect. Thanks for watching.